Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, wherever and whenever you happen to be listening. This is episode 10 of Parkinsons with Jeff. At least I think it's episode 10. And today we're going to talk about how long does it actually take from our daily lives if we have Parkinson's to manage our symptoms and to do the things that we should be doing to try and make sure either the symptoms are managed, and more importantly, what we can do to help hold back the progression of the disease in general. Now, disclaimer as always at the beginning of each episode, I am not a medical professional. I am just sharing my experience with you. And if you have Parkinson's, you should be under the care of a professional neurologist, and preferably one that has experience specifically with Parkinson's. So this episode is to give not just the people with Parkinson's, like myself, but also the relatives, friends, caregivers of Parkinson's patients, so that they also know what to expect in terms of where's the time going to go, where's the effort going to go, because managing Parkinson's is not simply taking medications. That is definitely part of it. You are most likely on some type of medication regime already, I would hope. But there's a lot more to it than that. And my experience is with Parkinson's is at the moment primarily limited to my cognitive skills. My motor skills are not terribly affected yet, thank goodness. I do have some balance issues. I do have some weakness in my right leg, which sometimes is worse than others. And the motor skills, for the most part, don't affect me too badly at all. I'm very lucky to be able to say that. And that allows me to be more active than some people that have Parkinson's. But remember, everyone's Parkinson's journey is different. So I'll give you a silly example. I play the drums, not particularly well, but I try. And because of the signaling from my brain to my right foot, which controls my kick pedal, the bass drum, I can't do some of the more complicated bass drum rhythms that I used to be able to do. But it's certainly good practice to try. But unfortunately, I have lost my position as Van Halen's drummer because of this. It's a shame, but that's life. But again, everyone's journey is different. And certainly there are some public journeys out there that are highly visible, such as Michael J. Fox's journey. You can see his symptoms when he is on television. He has a lot of tremors, a lot of shakes. He has a lot of walking difficulty now. You can see that his progression has occurred and affects him from a motor skills standpoint. His cognition certainly seems to still be intact, although I'm sure that it is affected. And there are other things too that often go hand in hand with Parkinson's, such as mood and mood swings, depression associated with Parkinson's is a common symptom. So you need to be talking to both your neurologist and your primary care doctor to make sure you're managing all of these things properly and that those two key people are talking to one another. But let's have a look at some of the elements of day-to-day management of parking. I think we all know how to park a car. Actually, I posted something on social media a few weeks ago. I definitely know how to park a car still. Yeah, didn't manage to do anything. The Parkinson's related elements of managing your life on a day-to-day basis, managing symptoms, and also therapy, proactive therapy to try and keep this disease at bay. The first thing that I want to talk about is swallowing. Sounds simple enough, but in a literal way, late-stage Parkinson's, the disease does manifest in the throat. So there's a lot of focus spent on exercising the throat, typically via speech therapy, in order to head that off. Because obviously, if you get to a stage in Parkinson's where you're having difficulty swallowing, then eating and drinking can become problematic. And that is not a path that I want any of you to go down. So swallowing is a key focus, even if you don't have a speech problem other than unable to remember what the heck you were trying to say, which happens to me quite a bit. The focus should still be on swallowing, and speech therapy is a way to go about doing that. So basically, get ahead of it while you still can. One of the key tools that I use is Parkinson's Voice Project program. You could visit Parkinson, that's without the S, parkinsonswithgeoff.org, and there is a link to them on my website. And for those of you naughty people that still don't know what my website looks like, you can find it at parkinsonswithgeoff.com. That's Jeff with a G, Geoff, parkinsonswithgeoff.com. There's a link on there at the bottom under resources to the Parkinson's Voice Project. And there are a couple of ways you can interact with that excellent organization. First of all, they do have a certified provider network here in the US. But just as impressively, they have some incredible online resources that you can use at home, including live sessions. They run Monday through Friday. You can join in or just listen if you wish. But it gives you a lot of excellent training on speech. And not just speech, we're talking about speaking with intent. And that's a key thing about Parkinson's. Remember, it's our automatic part of our brain that is affected. So we really need to focus on shifting away from automatic to conscious and doing things with intent so that we create some new pathways and get things done. So parkinsonvoiceproject.org. They have videos. They have many different readings that you can do, live sessions, as well as their certified provider network. And that is my key thing that I do to address my swallowing and address my speech overall. Now, that in and of itself, if I just did an online program or an online session, you should allow about 20 minutes a day for that. So there's 20 minutes right there. Next thing, also very basic, but if you have significant motor skill impairment, it's not so easy, is to be active. At the very least, as long as you can, you should be walking at least a mile a day. So allow 30 minutes. If you can do 30 minutes of walking a day as a minimum, that's a great baseline. Anything more than that is a bonus. Now, I happen to still be in a position with my motor skills that I'm able to go to the gym. I can also walk quite a bit more than 30 minutes a day, although sometimes I'm kind of pooped after about 45 minutes. It really depends on the day. If I'm not having an off day, then I can do more than that. But you need to be able, you don't need to be able, sorry, you may not be able to. You need to aim for walking about 30 minutes a day. Physical activity is key. And that actually applies whether you have Parkinson's or not. Everyone should be doing a minimum amount of physical activity each day, 30 minutes. And I don't know what that equates to in steps. Some people say 10,000 steps. I think that's more like 4 or 5 miles, depends on your stride, of course. But allow 30 minutes. Okay, so you've got physical activity in there. Some people do physical therapy as well. So I'm actually going through some rounds of physical therapy at the moment just to address some of the weakness in my right leg and also my balance issues. And you will have drive time that you have to allow for to and from the physical therapy session, unless you're happy in a happy position to have someone come to your house and do the session for you. So you got a 30-minute, I have a 30-minute physical therapy session plus the drive time to and from. So I'm adding all this together for you just to give you an idea. And don't worry, I'll summarize it at the end. You're not meant to remember all these numbers as I go along. I wouldn't be able to remember them myself, to be honest. And then there's the cognitive aspect. Now, I have mentioned that I use an app called Brain HQ. I think it's okay to give them a bit of a plug here on the podcast. I don't think they'll mind that, but that's not the only app, for sure. There are many out there, such as Impulse, Lumosity. There's one called NeuroTracker that apparently has been studied by the Navy SEALs and has got good science behind it. That would take about 20 minutes a day if you're doing it properly, as a minimum. You can spend a lot more than that, but that takes about 20 minutes. If you can't do an app, maybe you don't have the dexterity to use the keyboard on your phone, then do things like a crossword puzzle, anything at all to keep your brain and your mind active. You can do something other than these brain apps, if you like. You could learn a new language, and I'll do a shout out for the app that I use, Duolingo. That's a great way to keep your brain active, but a brain training app does have science specifically behind exercising different parts of your brain, memory recognition, pattern recognition, things like that. So it's a bit more comprehensive, but something is better than nothing. So learning a language is also a great thing to do. Can be fun, especially when you mess up the pronunciation like I do. But the key here is to keep your brain active. And again, even if you do just one of these language courses and you're seriously dedicated to it, the minimum you're going to put in is about 20 minutes a day. This all must be done with conscious effort. It must be done with intent. This is the whole purpose of it. In fact, when you have Parkinson's, you really have to be thinking about what you're doing. Your autonomous part of your motor skills and your cognition are affected by the Parkinsons. And you really have to be bypassing that by putting in a lot of conscious effort. Again, we call it speaking with intent. So, what I've just mentioned here as a minimum is going to add up to about an hour and a half a day. This is your baseline. At least this is my baseline. On top of that, you've got travel time, you've got regular medical appointments and follow ups related to Parkinson's, depending on what your program of care looks like. So, 1.5 hours a day is your minimum, and it goes upwards from there depending on what symptoms you have. But it is a full time job for your brain. Don't think that you put an hour and a half into this and then you're done for the day. No, you might be done with the specific exercises for the day, but you have to approach the whole of your day with intent. When you do your speech therapy, for example, with Parkinson Voice Project, when you do your speech therapy, the idea is that you take what you learn in those sessions and you actually employ it as you're going out into the real world and you're speaking. So your brain is always thinking with intent. And this is, as I said, the way to construct new bypasses of pathways around the affected part of your brain. If you go to the Parkinsons with Geoff website, you can certainly see these resources in the resources section that I've put there. You can click on any of those, and the links will take you to the parkinsonvoiceproject.org website as an example. I have updated as well the travel checklist and made it more of a checklist type checklist, because before it was a bit too wordy. Now, in classic Geoff style, it is too wordy, but you have the luxury of not reading any of the words and just using the checklist that I put right at the front of the let's call it a travel guide. One thing to be aware of, because I talked about travel with your Parkinson's medication in the last episode, there's one thing that I neglected to include, and that is that some countries will expect you to only bring a maximum of a 30-day supply of medication with you, which is fine for your typical vacation. But if you're going somewhere for an extended vacation, perhaps you're going on an extended cruise, I don't know. It depends on which countries you're stopping at, really, and whether or not they will check. But just be aware that some countries will require you to get a letter from your doctor and also provide their own pre-approval if you're going to bring in more than 1 month's worth of personal supply. So please be aware of that. It's just a precaution. Each country is different and each medication is different. Certainly, if you're taking anything that is considered, as we say in the US, a controlled substance, that is likely to be the case. So just be aware of it and double check before you go. You don't want any surprises at the airport. There are enough surprises at airports as there are. So that's it for now. The website is up to date. Please do make good use of it. Please also keep an eye on the social media channels, the Instagram Parkinsons with Geoff, the Facebook Parkinsons with Geoff site, and I hope that you're finding these things useful. I will put another podcast up in the not too distant future. In the meantime, I hope you're all doing well. Please be safe and please be kind to one another. Take care. Bye bye.